Good afternoon. Welcome to the weekly livestock market update. I'm Brownfield anchor reporter Megan Grebner. With us as always to talk all things markets is University of Missouri Scott Brown. Good afternoon, Scott.
Good afternoon, Megan.
All right. Big story of the day is cattle on feed report, which we'll get to here in a little bit. But to kick things off, let's recap what happened this week in the markets.
Yeah, on the cattle side this week, really cash cattle, I'm going to say unchanged for the week. Got a little strength here late in the week, but unchanged overall on the week. If you look at the feeder cattle markets this week, they were anywhere from steady to $4 lower this week. On the future side, some strength here late in the week. The February live cattle futures contract ended up closing up more than almost $4 this week, while the March feeder cattle futures contract was up more than $8 this week. Really, I think driven in large part was the 30-cent decline in March corn futures helping those feeder cattle contracts. Strong week on box beef prices. The choice box beef price was up about $8.30 this week. That actually puts it above year-ago levels for the week. And we had strength across the board in all those beef components. On the pork side of the equation, cash barrel and goat prices were virtually unchanged this week. The February lean hog futures contract also showing strength here late in the week, up a little more than $2. The pork cutout value basically unchanged on the week as we saw some strength in loins and butts, helping to offset some weakness, particularly in hams.
Let's talk slaughter. We had a little bit of a dip last week, but rebounded quite well this week. And it looks like they've definitely been busy and pushing those slaughter totals about as high as they can.
Yeah, that's right. You look at the cattle side, USDA projecting for the week ending January 23rd, 657,000 head of cattle slaughter this week. That's up 6,000 head from a week ago. It's up about 2% from where we were a year ago. On the hog side, a big run of hogs this week, 2.738 million head of hogs. That's 97,000 head more than where we were a week ago. So pretty good runs on both cattle and hogs this week.
Are we still watching to make sure how long, and this is probably a pretty wild guess that you may not be able to answer for me, but how long do we anticipate us continuing to push these daily slaughter totals as much as we can? We've seen a lot of 498 every day this week. In comparison to a year ago, we're well above, for the most part, well above where we were a year ago levels, and continue to push higher and higher.
Yeah, so Megan, I think we still have a ways to go here. We're in some ways still paying the price for those very low slaughter levels that would have happened back in late March, early April, May of last year. And, in many cases, we just keep having pushed those out, and we're just continuing to try to catch up. We ought to be getting closer to the end of that. I get lots of questions about, how backed up things are. And it's a question that I wish I had a better answer than I did. I certainly think we're getting in better shape than we once were, but we're going to continue here in this first quarter, I think, to have to make some pretty heavy runs.
Cattle on feed came out this afternoon, and as we take a look at those numbers, a little surprising in comparison to where pre-report estimates were.
Yeah, so if we look at placed on feed in December to start this discussion, USDA said we came in 0.8% above a year ago level, when all the pre-report estimates would have been unchanged to as much as 7% below year ago levels. And so that certainly is a surprise. That December placement's the second highest since they started keeping track of this report back in 1996. So pretty big run. And also on feed as of January 1, basically unchanged, but up 0.1%. That also falls slightly outside the upper end of the pre-report estimate. So more cattle to deal with than we might have anticipated. That also then might set the stage for your first question of today, of more cattle slaughter coming here for a period of time as we continue to run pretty hard placement numbers.
My other question that I'm going to follow up with you on that is, or one of my questions, because I may have a barrage of them this afternoon, is how much are we watching now that we're under the new administration, COVID recovery, maybe an additional round of aid to help folks make it through the winter time? And what does that mean for demand and prices moving forward?
Yeah, so I noticed President Biden was actually out today with another executive order trying to help what's a tough situation for many folks as we see job loss numbers start to move the wrong direction for us. I will say that's a big part of this, as you and I've kind of talked, the optimism for me in 2021 is less supplies coming as we get in the second half and some demand recovery as we get beyond COVID-19. Um, all the information we really have out this week says that probably doesn't happen to a large extent in the first half of this year, and that demand side weakness might stay with us longer than we care to admit. Again, there's a lot of expectation that um, things like real gross domestic product will grow this year, but actual money in consumers' pockets, that might be a little different question. And if that keeps folks from eating out, consuming meat products, that could lead to maybe weaker demand than we anticipate right now.
The other question I have for you is the global demand picture, and I'm gonna kind of veer off into hogs for a second. China confirmed their first case of African swine fever in several months this week. Does that potentially open the doors, along with just the doors that have already been opened, for more beef to go into China, but then also for us to continue to see some demand strength for U.S. pork into China, as well as we see how this unfolds again?
Yes. So the short answer is yes to that. I will say, as you see what's going on in China with the new ASF case, I believe 1,000 head of sows, maybe, if I remember that correctly. Um, I, I don't think we know whether that continues to expand as we move forward. But back to, all right, so the Chinese are used to still consuming 10 million metric ton more pork than what we would have projected in 2021, and that's with some recovery of domestic production. If that recovery doesn't happen because ASF starts to take a hold again, then I think that's then optimistic for U.S. pork producers to be able to move more product to China in 2021. It might be less optimistic for corn and soybean producers, by the way, to move more product to China in 2021. Um, to the cattle side, so I think there's room to grow um, beef headed to China as well in 2021. I think the little bit of taste that they've begun to get as they consume more of our product late in 2020 certainly could carry over and be a very strong market. I can maybe get a little more bullish about some of the growth coming on the beef side, China being one country. Japan's been pretty strong out of the gate here as well. So there's some room to be optimistic as well from that international side.
As we wrap up this week's reports from this week, livestock slaughter also came out, and December was another fairly strong month.
Yeah, that's right. 4.853 billion pounds of red meat produced in December of 2020. That was 3% higher than where we were in December of 2019. It's the highest level of production for a December on record. And again, I think we're kind of sitting here in this. Weights played a role in this in terms of the higher weights for both cattle and hogs certainly added to the amount of meat that we had. It continues to remind me to say, we've got a lot of meat supplies here in the short run. We need strong demand. We don't want to count our chicks too quickly here that supplies start to slow down when it's going to take a period of time. And that December report certainly reminds us of just what we've been doing on the production side. If you look at our weekly production numbers of late, Megan, we still sit in a fairly high end, so weekly production, and if we start back at 2005, so that's 838 weeks we can look at. This week that we're in, beef 8 ranks 18, pork 8, and chicken 31. That's at the upper end of all those. So just a lot of meat supplies across the board.
Keep buying pork, keep buying beef, keep buying poultry, and do your part to support local livestock producers, right?
That is correct. That is correct.
Continue that mantra for 2021. Scott, as we look ahead to next week, what reports do we have?
Yeah, so next week we'll start the week with cold storage, and then we finish the week with important report on the cattle side. We get cattle inventory on Friday, as well as the restaurant performance index.
You want to give us a little preview about what we're looking for and maybe what you're anticipating with that cattle inventory report?
Yeah, so we just take a second here to talk about beef cow inventory. I think a lot of us have expected it to be down. I think the drought in the western part of the U.S. certainly ensures, I should be careful what I say here, but ensures probably lower numbers for us when we see the January 1 counts of beef cows. If you look at some of the data that we have to try to get some type of estimate, so beef cow slaughter in 2020 was 78,000 head above 2019 levels. That tells me less cows in 2021, as well as when you look at the cattle on feed report we got today, percentage of heifers in the feed yard sitting there at about 38%. That's still at a level that would suggest we aren't holding heifers back to try to build the herd. If you look back in the period where we grew the quickest, we were talking about only 31% of cattle on feed being heifers back in 2015. So 38% certainly gets us on that front, as well as we're not holding a lot back. So I anticipate lower cow numbers. Let's hope that's what we get when we see the report next Friday.
All right, Scott, we will talk to you then. Have a great weekend.
You do the same, Megan.
To have our weekly livestock market update delivered in your email box every Saturday morning, visit our website, brownfieldagnews.com. You can click subscribe. You can also submit questions and comments there as well. And check out all of the great Brownfield podcasts at brownfieldagnews.com/podcast. Have a great weekend. I'm Megan Grebner for Brownfield.